we have a Voices birthday today. This is the 50th episode that we've done since Shannon was a co-host on the show.
Yes.
So let's raise a claw.
Right.
Everybody raise a claw.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Look at us. We're cute.
That picture.
To Shannon, and to 50 more and 50 more after that.
Happy
Salute.
50th, Shannon.
Salud.
I thought, Shannon, if you're okay with it, to celebrate your 50th episode with us, I've come up with something that I think you guys will enjoy. I'm hoping you'll go first. This is a fuck, marry, kill. Options being Steve Maviglio, Gil Duran, or a snarling swamp monster that is made of poison ivy.
So for the listeners, Steve Maviglio is this vile Democrat talker who he made himself the story when a guy let people into his home in DC who were running from like violent cops and was like, well, I'm the landlord and I'm the real hero. He also claimed that Kevin Johnson's accuser was paid to come out 20 years after the fact. And Gil Duran is the piece of shit neo-lib editor of the editorial board at the Bee, and the swamp monster is the monster in the swamp.
Right. Made of poison ivy, by the way.
Made of poison
swamp
ivy.
monster is the monster in the swamp. I can't.
This is rough.
It's a tough one, but you're a sharp cookie. I mean,
are you choosing them based on like how vile their behavior is, or are we choosing them based on how hot they are? Because those are different questions.
All of these come into consideration in a challenge such as this one.
Do I have to fuck the person more than once?
No, it's just it's one and done. It's
yeah.
Okay. I think I'm gonna marry the swamp monster.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but in like the Lucy and Ricky sleeping version where we have separate beds and shit.
Okay.
You know what I'm trying to say. And I think I'm gonna kill Gil Duran, and I'm gonna fuck Steve because on the inside of my vagina, I'm gonna wear one of those things that has like the razor blades in it.
Good call.
And
he won't be expecting that.
No, he won't. He won't be expecting it. So, and I don't even actually have to fuck him. It's
he doesn't
like
listen to the show.
Just the tip, and he's done.
Yeah.
See, that's a good way to navigate that.
Definitely agree on the swamp monster. I might flip the other two though.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I have to choose, I'm choosing younger peen over older peen.
I mean, we have not discussed the age of the swamp monster either.
That's true.
Maybe he's a young buck of a swamp monster.
Me. Maybe it's a fucking hot ass. It's the hottest piece of ass.
Now I just thought I was topping the swamp monster, so I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, this line of questioning is like full podcast segment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. I know.
But I like it.
Shannon, you always struggle with the marry, fuck, kill. I don't know what it is, but this is always one that you were like,
overthinking.
Whoa, I don't know.
Tattoo that says overthinking. I'm just sitting here overthinking it. I was trying to think of the best way to like make the bad man Maviglio pay, and razor blades on his dick seemed.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's tough. That's real rough. That old one. I think I'm gonna marry the swamp monster. I'll fuck Gil, and then I will kill myself.
I don't think that's an option.
Well, that's I'm making a new rule.
That's just how it's gonna be. So yeah, well,
I love it. Well, happy 50th, Shannon. I think for everyone's
Happy
50th, we have to do
50th.
an MFK.
Oh God.
I love that, and
All right.
I'm grateful, Skylar, that you remembered. I would have just aged and not celebrated.
No, we always have to celebrate for sure, especially now that we have these new voices branded White Claw koozies that we're using to drink our White Claw out of. So
yes.
all right, well, you guys ready to do the show?
Let us begin.
I cannot wait.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Why, hello, everyone. You have Kempa.
And Skylar.
And Shannon.
And Flo.
And here we are, episode 80. Very exciting. Just to begin, I want to talk about very quickly some elections on Tuesday, some primaries, and primaries increasingly matter as progressives and socialists are trying to get old school libs out of office. And we've had two big wins. One, Rashida Tlaib in Detroit, a Palestinian American woman who won this office in 2018. The second place runner was trying to take it from her, and everyone in mainstream media was saying, oh, it's going to be so close. She's fighting for her political life. She
absolutely destroyed her
like 70% to 30%. Yeah. Rocked her.
Yeah.
She is as safe as AOC, and they are going to have these platforms for as long as they want them. And then a surprise victory out in Missouri's 1st district in St. Louis. Cori Bush beat a long time, basically the second in line of a family.
Yeah, it's like a family legacy seat in that district. Yeah.
Yeah, and a mainstream Dem, and she was out there ever since 2014, risking her lives. Her life, risking her body in these Black Lives Matter protests.
Yep.
And now she represents that district. And I just want to say, my favorite thing about it is she represents the gun couple. I'm so happy about that.
Amazing. The gun couple.
The gun couple.
They will forever be known as.
She had a beautiful little interview, like this little hour-long talk with her and Bernie and Rashida, and then Jamal Bowman, who's like basically the other 2020 classmate edition of the squad. And it was very nice and fun to watch, and like it's just exciting to see. I mean, at this point, we officially have 1% of socialists now own 1% of both the House and the Senate. So up is down, down is up, because now we are the 1%.
Yep.
All right.
How long you been sitting on that line?
He's been waiting for a while.
Right? He's been like, all right, I can't wait to drop this one.
That's hats off to another Twitter user, actually, who mentioned that to me. So I can't remember your name. I'm sorry, dude, but hats off to you for that. But I guess let's get into the real show. I don't know. I've just been like fucking
the real show.
Yeah,
Let's
I've been walking on
show.
sunshine because of this for the last day and a half, and we get losses all the time. Locally, we've had a couple, but like every once in a while, there's something you can kind of hang your hat on, and I think Cori Bush is deeply exciting.
For sure. Yeah, agreed.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Totally
Yeah,
agree.
I mean, and you're right. Like the progressive movement takes a lot of L's as we go, and it's like recommended and I think super important to like celebrate your W's when you get them. For sure.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Next week,
we've
Tuesday.
taken a lot of L's.
That's part of the job, I think, if you're gonna going to be in the progressive game.
Yeah, the same night that I'm like cry laughing and like wooting about Corey winning, I'm texting Flo like, are you okay, because of shit that's going on locally.
Yeah.
But we'll get them. We'll get the bastards, because you never let the bastards win.
That's right.
Don't do it.
So let's start with a really important local issue. And Shannon, I think we're going to have you take the reins on this. Friend of the show, Bob Erlenbush, who runs the Sac Region Coalition to End Homelessness, has been working every year to put out a report of how many people experiencing homelessness in our region die and every year, and what their causes of death are, and sort of the demographics. It's really important work, and if Bob didn't do it, no one else would.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. And so can you, as you were quoted in the B article, I don't know why all of you guys keep getting quoted in these articles.
Nobody's quoting me. I don't know what that's about exactly.
What the
I'm
fuck,
pitching you
people?
left and right.
I got a lot of time to talk on the phone and
like,
shit.
I've got a guy who's got opinions on this. Shannon, you know, you and I have been paying attention to Bob, and we obviously have known him for a long time, but like, you also know this from firsthand experience when your guests end up passing. Can you talk to us? Can you give us the big picture of his report on homeless deaths this year, and then we can sort of start diving into the deep parts of it?
Yeah. So the Sacramento Regional Coalition to End Homelessness is a local nonprofit organization that works on advocacy issues around housing and homelessness. And this annual report is really one of the things that we look forward to coming out of the coalition. And like Kempa said, if Bob didn't do it, nobody else would. And just like fun fact about the regional coalition is that there's one employee, and that employee is Bob Erlenbush.
I love it. A coalition of one.
Yeah.
Coalition of one.
I mean, there's a board of directors.
Right.
And I actually sit on the board of directors, and anything that I say tonight is not affiliated with my seat on that board. Just so
unlike usually when you're like talking about farting or whatever.
Yeah, except for the intro.
If I'm talking about farting,
capacity.
When I talk about farting and marrying, fucking, and killing someone, like all of that is always
it's always on behalf of
my professional life, obviously.
Sure,
yes,
right.
That's obviously how you roll.
I'm gonna get a call from my boss.
You are now.
It's like
just kidding. Like, it's satire.
Just kidding. My boss actually listens to the show from time to time, so I'm totally killing. Oh,
you're killing it. You're killing.
I'm totes kidding.
Yeah.
Don't fire me.
On your day off, Craig. Don't get fired on your day off.
Oh boy. So the report shows, I wish that I could say that this was startling information. It's certainly appalling information that we continue to see a rise in the number of homeless deaths in our community. From 2016 to 2019, the number has just jumped. In 2016, there were 71 deaths. 2019, we're at 138, which is 6 more deaths than in 2018. So in Sacramento, a person experiencing homelessness died every 2.5 days in 2019, which I think really helps us wrap our minds around the gravity of the situation and the need to act with urgency to really, get into some systems change that works for people who are experiencing homelessness. And we will likely get into more conversation around that later. The leading causes of death for people experiencing homelessness, according to the report, is substance abuse, and methamphetamines are at the top of that list of the substances that are taking folks' lives. Injuries come, very quickly after, at 33% or just over 33.5%. We also see that when you look at ethnicity, disproportionately Black folks are impacted by homelessness in general, but homeless people who died in 2019 made up 28% of the total, which is up from 19% in 2017 and 2018. So, and we have to think, when we think about that, we also have to remember that Black people make up 13% of the county's population. So this is like this is disproportionate,
right?
Glaring disproportionate,
right?
And fully, 1 in 3 people experiencing homelessness in our county is Black. So that tells you how
That's
overrepresented they
are. Right.
And that's part of the reason why, when we have the conversation about homelessness, it's just a prime example of how, these issues that are happening in our communities always disproportionately impact the people who are most vulnerable. And so that's why, Black people make up a third of our homeless population. And so even though homelessness is an issue that's not usually raced specifically, there are racial overtones and they intersect, right? So you're talking about people who are the poorest of the poor, and then also disproportionately brown.
And to add to that, we can talk about deaths of women experiencing homelessness, and this is also a disproportionate number, where 33 homeless women died in 2019, which is 26% of the total, and that is increased. In 2016, it was more like 18% of the deaths were women. So we're seeing meth-related deaths increasing significantly, deaths of homeless women climbing, and Black folks are represented at a very high rate in this report.
Can I ask like a dumb guy question real quick?
Oh my gosh, I would love that.
The numbers surrounding unhoused women were, I just had a question as to why, because that would lead me to believe that there are, like, the numbers of homeless men are much higher than homeless women, right? If their number of deaths is significantly lower in that regard, or like why is that number so much lower than like what you would imagine to be closer to like 50-50, more representative of like how many men versus how many women there are?
Yeah, I mean, I can offer an anecdotal answer to that, which is that what we tend to find in terms of women experiencing homelessness is that their social support there is a better social support, with more couch surfing throughout the year. They also are in family units. Oftentimes they're moms with children, and it's one of the, we've talked about this before, the problem with the methodology in the homeless count is that families experiencing homelessness are so underrepresented, and that's because they'll hide in cars and they'll hide in abandoned buildings, and they will hide
for their
and
own
make
safety.
sure they're not found for safety,
for
safety purposes. And so women tend to do the same. I mean, we talk about violence against women is a huge issue, and it's a huge issue in the community of women experiencing homelessness. It's in their best interest to not be counted or not be found. Being counted is important, but to not be found. And so I would never say that it is the truth that more men are experiencing homelessness than there are women. I would my argument would be that we just don't have a methodology that captures women well, and that is because we have a system that is designed not to protect them.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Can I add one thing too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in my time covering this, I've also noticed that the community tends to want to support even community members who like might have some anti-homeless like biases. They tend to be more willing to support women experiencing homelessness, finding ways to help them, and children and youth, although youth are just as hard to find, if not more hard to find and count.
Yeah.
And that's like, I'm talking like 12 to 24 years old or whatever. It really behooves them to stay hidden. But these are people that immediately the community in their head, it clicks as vulnerable. And so they do want to support. And so I think there's a little bit of that too.
Yeah, I mean, we see that even in our community when we're talking about the shelters that are supposed to come up in the various districts here. The Meadowview shelter that is coming down the pipeline went from being a shelter for people experiencing homelessness to being a shelter for women experiencing homelessness. And there's actually some problems with that, in my opinion. I recently sat in on a meeting to talk about how we can get people into that shelter, and there are some problems there. But yes, it's 100% accurate that people, it's the like, when you are the person who has like the bleeding heart that wants to help someone, you're going to be drawn to helping women and children, right?
Yep.
Like, and I'm not saying that that's bad. It's just like, homeless dudes need help too.
Yeah,
they do. Yeah. And it's something that like, it's also a tricky conversation, right?
Totally.
But it's something that I think is very important because, even if you're a single male and you might appear physically and mentally healthy, you're going through it and you do need support. And I think there's this long line of our culture saying, if you're a man who is, hale and of sound mind, like, get a job and, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And it's just not that fucking simple.
Right.
And single men do need more support than they currently get.
And it also
everyone does.
It also puts, I know that you're more likely to, see women with children, but I always wonder if some of that is also a function of, because we're more likely to support families that include women. Because if you are a man experiencing homelessness and you're also parenting, there are not a whole lot of like fathers and families kind of, shelters that exist. And so, I do think that there is a bias in like the structures that we create do then reinforce like the way that we see things.
Totally.
So women end up with children because there's a lot more ways that women can be supported when they have children. And that those same things don't exist. And I think it's something that we have to uplift. I just really want to thank Bob for doing this work. He is a tireless advocate. Comments on Measure U items, really is willing to get in there and do this really important work. And I think, I think highlighting this report is important on our part. It's also, important in that it plays out in the ways in which the issues that we talk about a lot on this show are manifested. And so, I think there's a call to action right now that I want to uplift that Bob is behind around the county and trying to defund some of their homeless outreach teams that are currently funded by the sheriff. sheriff actually gets even more money disproportionately compared to the rest of the county than Sac PD does compared to the city. And so they're really pushing right now to be able to have those funds actually go to community-based organizations that focus on homelessness instead of being concentrated there. So if you're able to sign on to their change.org petition, they really could use all the support that they can get from folks who live in the county to be able to say that that's a really important push. And I know Shannon has talked about this a lot and may want to, get into, but just how dangerous it is when the police are involved in managing homelessness. And I can speak from firsthand experience, both having conversations with sheriff's deputies, as well as just observing the ways in which both SAC PD and sheriff deputies interact with people experiencing homelessness, that I don't know if it's training or just general disposition, but they're not well equipped. And I've been horrified by some of the things I've heard people who are supposedly, trained in working in homeless outreach say about the people that they're interacting with in front of them in a way that's just disrespectful to their humanity.
This is telling me that we haven't been covering what really for a long time was our central issue, homelessness, as much recently, because there's like 30 directions I want to go right now in this
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I know.
Yeah.
And the reason that we brought this up today was we wanted to take a moment for Bob's report,
Yeah.
So that's funny to me, and like not haha funny, but it's interesting to me that just like it all of the wildness that's been going on, like in our region and in our politics and National Guard in our streets, it's so sad that this population that is our most vulnerable population has sort of taken the bench on the conversation when they should possibly be the ones that we are considering most
Right.
deeply right now, especially during the second spike.
I was going to say too, this report is how bad the numbers in 2019 are in comparison to the numbers from 2018. And I'm thinking, while I'm reading this, like, oh my God, I don't even want to see what comes out when they do this report for 2020 versus 2019. Like I think we can expect that to be substantially different. And yeah, thinking about that is kind of awful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I too am really grateful that this report exists, because I think it so succinctly puts on display this really important issue. And if I pull the lens back and widen it a little bit, I think, it's true that we're not talking about homelessness as much as we once did, or as much as maybe we should be. But I think this really falls, I think the reason for that is even more striking to me. And it's that our community is in the middle of such an important uprising, because so much of it is fucked. And it's hard, right? Like, if we can't even keep up with what's going on we record twice a week and we can't get to homelessness as often as we once did. That, I think, that's something worth sitting with for a minute. But the other side of that is that a homeless deaths report that tells us that 138 people died in 2019 is just another really firm indicator that this community cannot afford to press its heels in and not work towards system change that is centered in equity. Like, because if we do that, then we can actually come up with solutions for the crisis of homelessness, as well as
Absolutely.
for police, being completely overfunded. Like, we can defund the police and still, and then we can also talk about education, and we can talk about healthcare. Like, if we are really to talk about systems change, we design systems that have all of these issues at right, and we can actually come up with solutions. I mean, I cannot wait for there to be a day that the homeless deaths report comes out and it has dropped as as low as 0. Like, it's in 2019, 9 of the 33 women who died are 9 women that I knew personally. I did their memorial services. Like, that, there has to come a day when that is not a part of anybody's job. Like, we should be celebrating these folks getting into housing and coming out of the struggle of homelessness, not fucking burying them. Like, one of these women that died, and I'll stop in just a second, but her name was Deborah Olivero, and she was murdered over by the VOA family shelter by a spouse who had a mental health episode. And he came out of it. I corresponded with him through the jail system, and he is just living with this like immense guilt, and is like, if I just had help, if someone just acknowledged my mental health, I wouldn't have murdered my wife. Like, this is what's happening in Sacramento, and that is why this report is important, and it should be the thing that tells us every year to keep working harder, and that it should be the thing. Like, Steinberg has this platform, and he talks about wanting to make change so that people experiencing homelessness aren't suffering anymore. Like, this is what he should be working on, making these numbers say 0.
Yeah. You know, you were touching on this just now. Yeah, we haven't covered homelessness as much as we'd want to, and I think that's something that we should reflect on too, you know, moving forward. It also is a reminder to us that like all of these issues are intertwined, right?
Yes,
Totally.
Shannon's 100% right that like this, like housing and homelessness and mental health services
police
are
brutality,
up front and center of the
anti-blackness,
defund and abolish police discussion, right?
Totally.
Like, that money that we give those guys to buy fucking bear claws and shit could be providing mental health services to people who don't have access to them right now. Or, I mean, like we always say on the show, like what's the solution to people like a large group of people who don't have anywhere to sleep? Put fucking roofs over their heads.
Yeah.
You know, and you look at the police budget, and it's like clear that like we don't have the money is not like an answer to that. So I don't know, just to like really draw the line between how like all of those things are 100% interconnected, in housing and mental health services, and services for people who are experiencing addiction or things like that. Like, all of that needs to be, our whole community is like so much more healthy and so much more whole if everybody, including our most vulnerable people who like need the most assistance, if they have what they need, like all of us do fucking better, you know?
Yeah.
Totally.
And there are large umbrella terms for all of this, but you know, a big part of it, which I think Katie Valenzuela, the council member elect, and Flo have been focusing on, it's that our budgets reflect where our hearts are.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
what the fuck are we doing? You know?
Right.
And if we're not doing it right, we better speak up. And Gil Duran at the B might not understand what speaking up and, you know, taking to the streets means, and they might think that that's a little uncouth for their taste, but that's step one. So Gil, go fuck yourself.
This is just a dude who's like, you know, all of these fucking people in the streets need to get back to their function in society, which is to serve me and my friends and not be so fucking loud about how they don't like it. That's what I fucking read when I read that shit. It's like, dude,
It's so
get
gross.
fucked, you motherfucker.
This guy worked an active campaign for Governor Jerry Brown as his press guy to end redevelopment housing dollars. They are the reason we are where we are right now.
Right.
So Gil, as the head of the editorial board of our local daily paper,
Ew.
he was also, I think he was like Dianne Feinstein's comms guy. It's perfect. It's too perfect.
Dude, yeah, it rules. Yeah, he rules for sure.
Well, can we talk about the money? Because I think we all agree that there is money.
The money is here. We are the wealthiest nation in the world, and we are the wealthiest part of that nation.
Yeah. So exactly. And so they're especially the libs are like, well, yeah, but how will we pay for this?
Right.
And
I can't.
you look at California.
It's obnoxious. It's completely obnoxious.
I think at this point, I think one of the things that COVID has done though is like more people than ever are like, nah, dog, like I'm not, how do we pay for it is not like a conversation I'm willing to have anymore.
You're not allowed to say
people,
that anymore.
yeah, people fucking know that's bullshit now.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
Yeah.
So for listeners, and we've said it before months ago, but we should say it all the time. California has the most billionaires in all of the US. In fact, if we were our own country, we would rank third in the world behind the US and China for hosting the most billionaires. We have 165 billionaires in this state.
Many of whom are worth like dozens of billions of dollars.
Yes. And yet, we have the worst homelessness crisis.
Well, how are we going to
probably
pay
in the
for it,
nation.
Dave?
But how can we pay for it? And also, why don't these I guess maybe I get into that some other time, but why is nobody talking about public housing? Why is nobody talking about public housing in this goddamn fucking state?
Because public housing, I mean, this is the exact issue, Dave, that happened at the city council meeting last week. So, one of my big regrets, I think I have Catholic guilt, even though I wasn't raised Catholic, is, that we don't have enough time in our days, and that because our city is so dysfunctional and so intentionally opaque, you don't find out until, the agenda comes out what's going to be what you're talking about over in 5 days. And so we have lives and other things to do. And so it wasn't until the meeting started that I even realized that the infill housing was on the agenda, because I was so busy trying to anticipate what was going to be on with this strong mayor thing, that I didn't get a chance to look at it. And the strong mayor, proposal was long. And so that was what I focused on. And they're having this conversation. And so I'm trying to scroll through. I missed obviously the opportunity to provide public comment. And I see that they're approving infill housing, which sounds good, but then at the same time, there is no requirement that it be affordable. And so I'm like, so we're letting the market decide in a pandemic where 30 million Americans have not been able to pay rent, and who knows how many more are going to be like housing insecure as this thing continues on.
That's definitely not public housing, what I was talking about. Yeah,
I know, but it also speaks to the fact that like even when things are moving for the reason I brought this up is because the conversation about this is same as the conversation about public housing. There was a caller who called in to oppose, and I'm in strong support of infill housing, but I want it to be affordable. And this caller was like, you don't ever try to do infill housing in the nice neighborhoods, and we don't want crime, and we don't want these people coming in, and we don't want da-da-da-da-da. And it was just kind of like, wait a minute, when did public housing, when did infill housing, when did all of these things that are affordable, that are intended for people to be able to have a place to live, which is one of our core needs, by the way, in case we've forgotten, like food, shelter, water, clothing, safety, like these are all part of our core needs. When did that become synonymous with you're bringing in a bad element and now my neighborhood's going to be dangerous? Like, when did building homeless shelters suddenly make it so that, I mean, the strangest argument I heard about the
They've been arguing that forever, though. Yeah,
and the strangest argument I heard about the Meadowview shelter was that it was going to bring pedophiles to the area. And I was like, when did people experiencing homelessness become sexual predators of children? Like, I'm so confused about how these issues became completely overlap, and that in people's minds, it's like, I need to save myself from the scary pedophilic homeless people. I'm like, and so, but what was strangest about it was that the argument was made involved somebody from, I want to say it was I think it was Jake Mossauer from St. Hope. Is that St. Hope? Came up and put up this map of all of these registered sex offenders in Oak Park. And I was like, but they all have houses. So how does any of this make, like, how is this the argument to argue against the X Street shelter, which was on the docket at the same time as the Meadowview? It's like, there's not this logic that
Jake, that's some real,
it was
just, I want to speak directly to Jake. as a fellow Nelper, that's some
Yeah.
real fucking bullshit, man. And
Totally.
I really think he's pulling from a page of the worst Nelper to ever grace Nelp, Josh Wood, and don't ever fucking do that again.
And I was just like, also the audacity when you work for St. Hope to want to have a conversation about pedophiles. Serious audacity.
I just like the idea.
But to put this up and show
Flo,
all
do you want to let the
their
listeners know what you meant there, by the way?
What? Yeah, so obviously Kevin Johnson has been not just rumored, but there are cases against him for having interactions with underage girls. I would strongly encourage people to read the Deadspin article because they went through basically the entire history of it. And I think that article came out in like 2014 or 15.
Mm-hmm.
And so
this is a friend of the show, Steve Maviglio, defended Kevin Johnson against this teen.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Right, exactly. This teenage girl,
and more fantastic work by Steve Maviglio.
And one of the worst quotes involved in this is the former mayor saying, "I don't remember us being naked." That's somebody accuses you of being naked with a 16-year-old, and your response to that is, "I don't remember us being naked." Like, it's infuriating. So there really is audacity to have an organization that is run by him.
Your school is run by Kevin. It's paid by Kevin Johnson.
Wanting to come out and take this hardline stance against somehow homeless people needing shelter at the X Street shelter being somehow tied with the people who live in the community who are registered sex offenders. I don't even understand the logic behind it. It's such a logical leap, but I think this is what happens with public housing, to bring it back to Dave's point, with infill housing and with homeless shelters, is that we tie them to the worst of the worst, as if the people who aren't already living here are not registered. Like, you can find registered sex offenders in almost any neighborhood if you go in and look at the Megan's Law map. So why is it that we're making it seem as if it's this issue with people experiencing homelessness?
It always wilds me out when it's like, when people are like, oh no, like if we put homeless shelters up, it's going to like increase criminal activity or bring in this criminal element or whatever. And it's like, well, wait a minute. So you're telling me that you think that people are more dangerous. Like right now they're in a situation where they're unsheltered. Like every day they're in a fucking, like their survival is in question. They're in like situations where it's like, I got to do what I got to do to make sure I fucking wake up tomorrow morning.
Right.
So you think that pulling people out of that situation and like relieving them of a little bit of that stress and that like, just like straight up survival mode, you think that that will make them more dangerous and like more unpredictable than people who are in a situation where like their survival is in question, like basically at every moment. That like thought process doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Like, yeah, like give these guys a comfortable, like give people a comfortable situation and like a decent life. I mean, like crime goes down, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. I just like the whole thing seems like really backwards to me.
Well, it's what happens when we make commodities out of the things that are the determinants
out of necessities,
of our health and safety,
right?
Right? Like, housing is not a commodity. Like it is a right. It is a necessity in order to live, in order to survive, in order to thrive. Like, why do people use hella meth when they're experiencing homelessness? It's because experiencing homelessness is fucked. And if you're using meth, you don't have to necessarily remember all of the fucky things that you have to live through. Like you steal because you need, like,
it's self-medication. The stealing is obviously a stealing out of necessity, right?
But I mean, to the wealthy, like the folks that Dave is talking about, the billionaires of California, but even like people who are significantly
off track with
less wealthy than that. But housing is a commodity for those people. And I think that those guys get so far removed from this fucking idea. And I do believe that people who like trade in real estate and are like professional landlords and make all their money in the housing market and whatnot, I do think that they regard homeless people as being less than human. I think that's the only way that you can like get to where your mindset is, where these guys' mindsets are, is that you like dehumanize these folks, you know, and you're just like, they're not my fucking problem.
Most
but
of
the way
San
that these
Francisco
guys
does that,
right?
Yeah.
But the way
Not
that they
even the
make their
wealthy.
money, right, is that like Shannon said, housing is not a commodity. Housing is a necessity. Like if housing is a commodity for you, okay, like good for you, but like for the rest of us, housing is a fucking necessity. And like I don't know, I went off on this super hard last episode. I'm not gonna do it again. But like think twice about the fact that like it's normal in our society for people to buy more of a necessity than they need and then withhold it from the people who need it so that they can make a profit. That's like a normal social function in this country that is completely acceptable by all social standards, and nobody fucking questions it. Like while the number of unhoused folks on the streets who die every year just continues to go up and up and up and up and up.
Yeah. By the way, if any listener who's new in the last year or so wants to check it out, housing advocate Veronica Beatty wrote an amazing piece a couple years ago at Voices River City, basically outlining the argument for why housing is a human right. So check that out. So what we were trying to say, I think. Like
let's talk about these billionaires.
We're talking about public housing, Dave. I took us on this road because I was just like, it's infuriating how this gets couched all together.
Totally.
Rabbit hole.
No, but like, as we said, it's all intertwined. So it's so hard to just stay on like these two things we're trying to talk about tonight, right? But there is a bill out there right now. It's called Assembly Bill 1253 here in California. It would bump the rate that the richest in our state pay in taxes the following ways. So it would be an extra 1% for your taxable income over $1 million a year, an extra 3% if your income is over $2 million, extra 3.5% if your income is over $5 million, right? So adding this to the existing state and federal taxes, our state's highest quote unquote earners, because their laborers are making them money, or they're passively making it, would pay 53.8% of earning above $5 million to the IRS in the state. Reflections.
What, like, explain the fucking problem to me.
Yes,
let's fucking go. Yeah, absolutely. Like in my opinion, if you're netting more than $5 million in income a year, then we take every penny you make beyond that, and you just get a plaque that says I won capitalism, that you can put it in front of your house so everybody knows that you're like the big swinging dick in your neighborhood or whatever. Like the idea that somebody who makes like $10 million would be like mad about having to like fucking pay that much in taxes blows my fucking mind. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just, like,
I don't understand. I mean, and maybe it's because I don't have a lot of money and don't understand what it is to have so much. It just like at my fingertips. But I don't get this. My fingertips. I don't get, like, your life is absolutely set. You want for nothing. You have a dozen homes and 20 cars and all of the nicest things, and with whatever the hell amount Skylar said that a rich person should be able to keep, you could still have all of those things. Like, you are not going to miss any of that money, and people, like human beings, will be inside and they will not die out on the streets of wherever.
That's correct.
Or like people will have access to medical care, or like, kids will have books that are teaching them, the most important things, or like whatever the fuck we're going to use all that money for. Like, right. Like all of those things. And you're like, nope.
My pushback, Shannon, is this doesn't sound very free market to me.
Right. Check this out. Here's a way that I think about this kind of stuff. Right? Is I can't speak for anybody else on the show or any of our listeners, but I'm guessing that people who earn like over $300,000 a year probably don't make up a huge portion of our listenership. or a huge part, like a
Agent
portion
Squillion.
of people that we know.
Agent Squillion and his Squillionaires.
So-
we've been cross-pollinating with our followers. So welcome all you Squillionaires.
Imagine how fucking cush your life would be if you made $1,000 every day, including weekends, a year, right? And that is a salary of $365,000,
Yep.
which is like a pretty healthy salary for sure. Like, dude, I can't even imagine like the things that I could start thinking about what I could do if I made $1,000 a day. And that's a third of what you would have to make. You have to make 3 times that to even register, like to begin to register with this new tax law, right? So you have to be doing like take your craziest financial aspirations and triple them. And
Correct.
then we're taking like an extra % off of what you already pay, you know? And like, my other favorite thing about this is that the fucking criticism of it, like this guy in this article, what's this fucking guy's name? John Copel. His whole thing is that, well, if we do this, people like all the billionaires will leave the state and nobody will want to come in.
Goodbye.
Like no businesses or
Goals.
whatever. And to me, it's like,
Hashtag
so what?
goals.
Why do we want people in this state hoarding all the money? Get the
Thank
fuck
you.
out then. Like,
Thank you.
what do you like?
Yes.
Don't like. I'm
Bye-bye.
not fucking worried about you being around here. It's not fucking helping me out. It's not helping anybody I know out. If you're gonna come in here, make billions of dollars, and give as little back as you possibly can, then get the fuck out and don't let the door hit you in the ass on your fucking way out.
I mean,
You're
or
not
let
lying.
it hit very hard so that you go further.
Yeah, let it hit you. Let it be a reminder to don't come back.
Right.
I mean,
no, yeah,
not-
totally. Can I will just add one thing to
I would,
this.
yes, please go ahead.
That 5 million should not be the last line that we're adding percentages
No,
to.
absolutely
Oh
not.
God, no.
5 million is like, it should be the baseline that we start adding percentages to.
100%.
Seriously.
And this is a former AOC a policy person who made this term familiar. Every billionaire is a policy failure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Billionaires should not exist.
They should
Nobody
not
earns
exist.
$1 billion. You
and,
take
like,
$1 billion.
I don't agree with my hosts in the sense that I view this also in the Maoist sense. But like, also, no, thank you, Sky, for laughing. Also, no billionaire should exist just because they don't deserve to make $1 billion, right? We should be taxing increasingly after $5 million, 4% extra, 5% extra, 10% extra. If you've got somebody who has $40 billion in our state, that's our policymakers' failure right there.
Correct.
And you don't fucking let them get
100%.
away with that.
Dude, that one dude, the Oracle guy, is worth like $60 billion.
Yep.
Can you imagine? Okay, so here's the other thing that's fucking bananas, right? So this guy, so he's worth $59 million or $59 billion to be exact. This dude could just cut a check for $58 billion to provide housing to people who need it in this state, basically single-handedly solve the housing crisis and still be a billionaire. He would
And
still
not miss that money.
he would still have 1,000 times $1 million.
Yeah.
And he could single-handedly solve like this huge housing crisis in like the biggest, most wealthy state in the country. And he just doesn't do it.
Listeners, you know who the enemy is.
My favorite thing about this conversation is when Skylar breaks down the math and it's like, if I make $1,000 for every day of this year,
I think that's why billionaires still exist, is because
no, totally.
your average person has not sat down and really thought about how much money $1 billion actually is. Because if I
100%.
feel like if people really understood how much money $1 billion is, and the fact that there's a dude that you could drive to his house in 3 hours from Sacramento,
We can
who's
tell you
got
where
like
it is.
$59 billion, like
Yeah.
I think like if enough people like really sat around and thought about the ramifications of that, this dude would have to spend $58 billion a year just in security.
I want to go outside his house and play that Bernie Sanders Tetris song of like the top 1%
Of the top 4%.
Oh man, it's been a while since Skylar's done a Bernie impression.
Well,
I know.
I've been in mourning, you know.
Oh dear, Skylar.
So speaking of a bunch of fucking leeches who are sucking our blood dry in the middle of a COVID crisis, you know, there's all these fucking unemployed people who are real mad because their unemployment benefits, their federal $600 a week unemployment benefits ended at the end of July. And
I want to verify you're calling the feds the leeches, right?
Oh, no, it's all these fucking unemployed workers. They think they can just sit around, smoke weed, and play Xbox and just collect checks, and I'm fucking sick of it. I, for one, am fucking...
watching Rambo.
Yeah, exactly. Eating fucking ice cream at 4 a.m. Well, I'm fucking working my ass off. I'm not even making
creative
$600
endeavors. I hate
a week.
it.
Yeah, it's fucking bullshit is what it is. But thank God the GOP is standing in between us and all of these assholes and withholding that money. Largely to an idea that if you show people what it's like to not be on starvation wages for too long, they won't want to go back. Which is that's a salient point being made by the Republicans on this one. Basically, anyway, we're in the middle of a negotiation. The Democrats want to continue to give people to extend the $600 a week unemployment to out of work people. The Republicans are like, no, we'll give you 2. Okay, fine, we'll give you 5. Okay, maybe we'll do 3. No, now we're back to 2. So that's what we're doing right now. Honestly, the whole thing is a fucking shit show. And we'll fucking see what happens. I really, as like myself, and I know a lot of people who are in my exact same position because they were my coworkers before this whole thing happened, who are just kind of sitting around like, well, I guess we'll see how it goes in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's terrifying though, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Well, especially because you're like, well, maybe Mitch McConnell will decide to be cool.
Right.
Like my financial
yeah.
security rests on like Mitch McConnell being cool.
Fingers crossed on Mitch.
Cool.
I
Great.
mean, I think it's also, again, like any chance we can bring this up, I think we should be bringing it up, which is that on the side, like we're talking about $600, right? That it during a time when there are people who actually cannot, where they're making $0. They can't even go to their jobs. And like neither side can come, like we expect the Republicans to like dig their heels in on this shit. And it's like, I think about Democrats and like this inability to I guess just in general, it's this inability to like give a fuck about people and like like what actually people who are getting $600 a week, like what are you doing with that money? You're buying your food and you're buying your like maybe you need some new chonies and you're paying for the debt that is just like building over and over, you know, like
diapers in like your life.
Like $600 a week is it's not a lot of dollars.
And it's
like
to keep you safe. It's to keep you at home. Nobody's doing.
That's the other point. It's paying you to stay home, which is what people are going to have to do if we want the fucking virus to be done with, and we can all actually get back to like being normal, right?
Right.
Like we should be paying people to stay home.
It's just this like, and it shouldn't be surprising anymore. And I guess maybe it isn't surprising. It's just really fucking frustrating, and it pisses me the fuck off that we like that they're the people who are in the big buildings wearing the blazers can't decide that like people living through a pandemic is important, and therefore here are the dollars to make that happen.
I just I love the idea where they're like, well, if we because $600 a week plus whatever you're making through the state is more money than many workers in this state and definitely in other states make.
Yep.
Well, good.
And
because
so
they should've
so
been making
the
it anyway.
exactly. Well, that's
Exactly.
the point, right?
Exactly.
So these people like the right is treating this as well, these guys are making more than minimum wage just to sit at home and do nothing. They're actually able to afford their rent and food and maybe have a little money to put into savings at the end of the month. And they're treating that like this is this fucking travesty. And it's yeah, that's a statement about minimum wage and what we expect for our workers to make in this country. It's not a reflection on the people who are unemployed.
They don't understand how it's affecting people.
All
right,
of the people
exactly.
making this decision have that.
Right.
They don't have to fucking worry.
They have way more than that. The Republicans are one thing, but Nancy Pelosi's worth $20 million.
Right.
This is completely
Rashida Tlaib was just talking about this on that Bernie chat Tuesday night. Just these not just Republicans, Democrats too, are why are these Hill staffers going to the food
right.
I'm sorry, what's it called?
It's a food pantry.
Food bank?
Yeah, the food bank. And
or a food bank.
Rashida's just well, I guess it's both, yeah. But Rashida's just you literally don't get it, do you? These people, no, they're not your staffers are not millionaires like you. They're scared right now, and things are hard, and you can only begin to imagine how much they do not know about their lower class constituents.
Right.
And again,
they can't visualize it. They can't do it. No, they are it is impossible for those guys to have empathy for a huge swath of American workers. They just cannot put themselves in anybody's shoes. It's impossible.
Flo, it looked like you were going to say something. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say there was a time when there was, this push to kind of seem relatable. And so you always wanted to know how much is a loaf of bread? How much is a gallon of milk? And it's there is something to be said for having a representative democracy when the people who are in those elected offices are often cannot relate to the day-to-day lived experiences. And I think part of what makes AOC so compelling and effective is when she first moved to DC, she was couch surfing or something.
Right.
And that was
she couldn't afford an apartment.
Yeah, that was the big thing. She was well, I haven't got my first paycheck yet, so how would I possibly do this? And all of her colleagues were just aghast and appalled. How could you be staying with someone? How could you not have a place to live? And it's well, she's actually not rich like the rest of you.
Right.
All of us are yeah, I feel that. I get it. Yeah.
The right uses that against her. The right uses that every time she scores another home run or whatever. The right will be oh, what does she know? She's just a fucking bartender.
Right.
And it's so what? You would rather have everybody who's in charge of making all the decisions never have had a real person job. You want this to be done completely by people who grew up with trust funds, who got in on family businesses that were already 4 generations in, and then softballed that into a political career. That's who you want to be making decisions for all the workers, not a fucking bartender. Just to get that
right, 100%. That's what they want. 100%.
And we've made it so that it's disqualifying, because the idea behind it is that, well, if they don't have enough money of their own and they're responsible for these budgets, they might steal. And it's you do know most of the people who steal are not people who
rich as balls.
They're already
back
rich,
to
right?
back to fucking billionaires.
Yeah, I was are you kidding me right now? But that's the argument, is that you want your elected officials to be wealthy because then they know how to handle large sums of money. And They know how to mandle.
Manhandle.
I don't even know what mandling is. That's how poor I am.
But I think there's a funny thing here too that we're kind of discussing. It's the right says this to scare people away from Democrats. So the right says AOC is just a bartender. What does she know? And she's gonna steal. And the Democrats are how dare you say that? And then the left is like, yeah, she's a fucking bartender. Fuck you. It's like, it's three very different conversations happening, which is very, very funny to watch these days.
Right.
Yeah. It always like I wonder how they honestly I wonder how they came up with the initial $600 a week figure. Like I don't really understand where that comes from. Like there's part of me that's like, oh, they had a bunch of people who like did a bunch of like they had all their fucking like the peons or whatever do these deep dives into like, all right, what the cost benefit analysis, cost analysis, like what it costs to live averaged out across the country. Here's what people make in this state versus this state. Here's how they come to the sum. The other part of me is like I just think that like Nancy Pelosi is like Lucille Bluth and was just like, well, I don't know. What's the lowest sum of money that anyone's ever made in a week? $600.
Yeah.
Well, like, we'll just make it that.
They can afford that in my district of San Francisco, I'm sure.
What? It's a frozen banana, Michael. What could it possibly cost? $10?
Such a good reference. So good.
There is good news. So we should probably start wrapping this up. I do want to say, though, I think there's reason to be cautiously optimistic if you are somebody who's relying on these payments.
I'm sorry. Did we just have Skylar as the sweet summer child of the show?
Yeah. I mean, I am. I'm having my moment. I'm doing my thing.
There is good news, said Skylar, never except for this one time.
So, well, I mean, it's good news for Californians. This is not really good news for anybody else other than that. But there is a thing in the works. Assemblyman Phil Ting out of San Francisco is leading a group of Democratic lawmakers to put a plan in place to the state will pay the additional $600 per week in the event that the federal government fails to do it. So that's not like official, but that is a thing that is being thrown around fairly seriously. Honestly, the thing that's scary about the entire thing in general, right, is that everything is up in the air. So it's like, okay, well, if this happens, then maybe this will happen. And then maybe this guy will do this. Then maybe that will precipitate this. And this is part of that. So it's not like super rock solid. But it is like I guess the good news, the sweet summer child moment is that there are people other than Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi who are like involved in making sure that California's workers get what they need. And I think that's cool. I also I don't know very much about this guy, but this article in the LA Times about the California kind of backup plan, this Phil Ting guy seems pretty legit. I was reading this article and halfway through I was like, this just sounds like a politician who wants to do right by his constituents. What fucking universe am I fucking living in right now? I don't know how that feels.
I don't know.
Can you imagine?
Process that.
Right? Like a politician who's actually advocating for the workers for no other reason than he wants the workers to have the things that they need.
Yeah.
What?
Incredible. I know.
Well,
but 2020 is a wild fucking time.
It really is.
Well, guys, in probably the most convoluted segue that I will do of this entire show, I am an unemployed worker.
Most convoluted.
Yeah. I'm gonna wind around some stuff, but I'm gonna wind up, and you'll understand.
Full disclosure, guys.
And that has been an experience for me. Part of that experience is that I do have a fair amount of time to comb through the internet and search in my ongoing and eternal quest for only the most perfect of the takes. And I've read some great takes. I've read some bad takes. I've read some takes that I thought were good and then turned out to be bad. And I've read some takes I thought were bad and then they turned out to be good. But very rarely there's these pearls. There's these pearls that are like these perfect takes. They are indisputable. They are uncontestable. I'm wondering, I'm like, do you guys know of like a better source than just kind of running wildly through Twitter with your nets cast out as far as you can get them to try and rein in the most perfect of all the takes? And if you do, please tell me where to go.
I'm going to stop you right there because I think I have the longest, fattest pearl necklace of takes, perfect takes.
The long, fat pearl necklace of takes.
Well, he was saying the perfect pearls, right?
The pearls, yeah.
Right. I guess I did set him up for that.
You need a better one than that.
Did I do a bad?
You did a bad.
Guys, I'm going to donkey punch you with some perfect takes.
Donkey punch you.
I'm a little confused. I don't know what any of you are talking about. So I've got a pearl necklace of perfect takes at voicesrivercity.com.
This is a very different podcast now.
We has pearls.
Did you listen to the intro?
If that ends up in the show notes, this is a very different podcast now.
No, it doesn't end up in the show notes. We ease them into this part.
Okay, all right.
But it is a
hashtag. For the 60% of our listeners that are still here at this point.
They're like, wait, did something happen to my phone? This is a different podcast.
Back to the necklace. It's called voicesrivercity.com. We've been around for 3 years. It started out news and arts coverage with Truth to Power commentary from community members who never would have been considered by the Sacramento Bee or the News and Review. Thankfully, both of those have started doing that in recent months. We also do this podcast in our most recent iteration. It's a whole lot of fun. Hit that subscribe button, smash that love button on your YouTube channel. And then we sorry.
Yeah, let's keep it going. I like this part of the pitch.
We do the Sac Follows the Money project. And we've got I'm working with my guy Sac Snark on one very important race right now, and he works behind the scenes these days. He's not quite as ubiquitous, but he does some cool shit. He's also got some great PRAs out in the works too, and we're basically trying to make our city and county more transparent. And it's all at voicesrivercity.com. We are on Twitter at Voices River City, on Instagram, and it's always fucking hilarious whatever Skylar throws up there at Voices River City. We're on Facebook, Voices River City. We're also on YouTube, Voices River City, so you can see our smiling little faces every episode. I'm wearing a bandana this one, so if you like bandanas,
it's been a real experience. Yeah.
And we all have koozies for our Voices River City koozies for our claws, which will be for sale soon, as will the Voices mug that Flo has right now.
And the Voices t-shirt that I'm wearing.
And the t-shirt that Skylar's wearing. We've got a lot of fun little merch coming out. So just thank you all. We love you all so much. If you like what we're doing, we've had a really solid influx of new patrons, and what we're trying to do is make this a sustainable long-term thing. We want to be a news co-op that is responsive to the community. And so if you believe in something like that and not in, let's say, a hedge fund owning a daily paper, support us at patreon.com/voicesrivercity for as low as $5 a month. You can go as high as $25 a month, and we'll send you a t-shirt and a mug. Skylar, I think you had a question.
I was just going to say, like, not only responsive to the community, but this model also keeps us beholden to no one except for our listeners, except for the community. It allows us to like say whatever we need to say, whatever we need to communicate to you without worrying, without having to answer anyone or have anyone who can tell us to do anything differently. It's my favorite part of this model.
The concept is full-on community journalism, and we're beholden to you. Like, we will write things that hopefully can challenge some of you, and if you think we get it wrong, you challenge us right back. And like, we're an ecosystem. We are not we're not standing in our ivory tower telling you what to do, like, let's say, a daily paper with a guy named Gil Duran. So I think that there's a real future in this sort of model, and I hope you believe in it too. I might have our friends at the Mendocino Voice on the show sometime soon, because they're building a co-op up in Mendocino County, and it's really, really cool.
Beautiful. I love it.
So I'm on Twitter at Kempo, YOUKNOWKEMPA.
I am on Twitter as Guillotine for You. That's Guillotine, the number 4, YOU. If you go there right now, I just wrote like a 100 tweet screed about what I think about the last Pod Save America episode I listened to. So that's a little extra incentive.
Oh, I saw the beginning of that. Yeah.
It's worth a read for sure.
That'll be my walk with the dog.
Yeah, it's good. I am. It's my turn.
Like Shannon.
I am Shan and D. Stevens, and I would like to say that there is a team of women who work at my job who are stuck in their houses who will be listening to this, because many of them are dedicated listeners, and to them I would like to say, you are amazing, and listen to this a couple times because you have hella time to sit around.
I love everything you all do at Mary House, and to the one staffer, I would let you lick my eyeball anytime.
Ooh.
Oh shit, she just sent me a text message while recording and said, "Make me famous." That exact person.
There we go. Eyeball famous.
Look,
man, you guys remember before COVID when we were like licking each other's eyeballs and fucking,
damn, I was
hanging out?
eyeballs. Man,
I miss
COVID
those
ruins
days.
everything. And I am at Flojaune, FLOJAUNE. I will not let you lick my eyeballs because that's gross even before we had a pandemic.
Well, let's never say never, all right?
Don't yuck anybody's yum.
I don't even think I could even wear contacts if I ever needed to, because touching my eyeballs just totally grossed me out. I don't have a rant about Pod Save America. My Twitter feed sometimes has snarky things about public meetings, so head on over.
Well, I think that's the episode. Guys, if you made it this far, thank you so much. Thank you for supporting the show.
Yeah.
We love you guys, and we want you to stay safe.
Stay sane.
Stay healthy.
And stay the fuck away from me.
So far, you're the only one who can do it. Me and Shannon are too extreme about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think part of the allure of it is you say something intense, but you say it kind of like friendly like.
Yeah. Now, that's a skill that is...
Stay the fuck away from me.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Flo and Dave can do it.
I brought that to a different level. Stay the fuck
away from me.
It's crazy. It's definitely crazy.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay.
But also, okay, bye-bye.
Let's get out of here.
Okay, bye.
Oh, my God.